The shotgun stock crashed into the German shepherd's ribs with a sickening crack, echoing across the silent Oak Grove gas station as Deputy Wade Harkkins laughed at the animal's agony. Rex, chained and starved for 3 weeks, could only press himself into the concrete, waiting for the next blow from the man who wore a badge like a license to torture. Before this monster can strike again, a dusty truck pulls in, and a female FBI special agent steps out with a K9 that smells blood. Subscribe now and stay until the end to witness instant justice. Comment with the city you're watching from so I can see how far this message travels. The wooden stock of the shotgun didn't just hit the dog. It sounded like a structural failure. A wet snap that made Martha Chen gasp from behind the safety of her store counter. "That's what happens when you growl at the law," Wade Harkkins sneered. He stood over the buckling German shepherd, Rex, whose black and tan fur was a matted map of 3 weeks of systematic cruelty. Inside the store, Martha's knuckles were white against the register. Her breath hitched as she watched the 4-year-old dog try to make himself as small as possible. "He's going to kill him, Martha," the teenage helper, Noah, whispered. His voice was thin, trembling with the kind of helpless rage that only exists in forgotten towns. "Blackwood put Harkins out here. They're the same monster, just different shirts," Martha replied. Her silver hair caught the light as she turned her head away from the window, unable to watch the predator savoring his prey. The bell above the door chimed, a sharp, uncheerful sound that felt like a sacrilege in the middle of a slow-motion murder. Maya stood 6 feet tall, her dark hair pulled back into a tight, severe bun. She wore the dark, tactical gear of the FBI, the yellow federal agent lettering on her back catching the afternoon sun. Beside her, Shadow, a 6-year-old K9 with muscled flanks and amber eyes, didn't just walk. He scanned the room, cataloging the exits and the fear on Martha's face before his gaze locked onto the window. A low, guttural growl rumbled in Shadow's chest, a vibration that Martha felt in her own teeth. "Easy, boy," Maya murmured. She placed a hand on Shadow's head, but her eyes were already on the parking lot, narrowing as she witnessed the shotgun stock rise for another swing. "What's happening out there?" Maya asked. Her voice was a calm, low-frequency warning. "Deputy Harkkins. He's disciplining a stray," Martha stammered. She couldn't meet the special agent's eyes. Maya didn't ask a second question. She pushed through the door, the heat of the Texas sun hitting her like a physical weight as she stepped into the smell of gasoline and copper-tinged blood. "Step away from him," Maya commanded. The words were precise, cutting through Harkins's laughter like a serrated blade. Harkins spun, his hand dropping instinctively to his holster, but he froze when he saw the badge and the K9 that looked ready to tear the atmosphere apart. "Who the hell are you? This is my town, sweetheart." Harkins spat, though the tremor in his fingers betrayed him. "I'm Special Agent Maya Cole, FBI, and that badge doesn't give you the right to torture a living creature," she said, now stepping forward as Shadow moved into a flanking position, his eyes never leaving the deputy's throat. "This animal is department property. I'll do whatever I want with it," Harkins countered. His hand closed around his pistol grip. "Try it," Maya said. The words were almost a whisper, a quiet promise of the violence she held in check. Harkins hesitated. He saw the steady, predatory gaze of a woman who had survived things he couldn't imagine, and for the first time in 3 weeks, he felt like the prey. He keyed his radio, his confidence returning as he called for backup. "Dispatch, got an outsider interfering with official business? Need units at Oak Grove Gas now. You just made the worst mistake of your life, Agent. Sheriff Blackwood owns this county. Harkkins grinned. He stepped back, sensing the arrival of his brothers. Maya knelt slowly beside Rex, her back to Harkkins in a display of absolute tactical superiority. I've got you, buddy. You're safe now. Rex flinched, his amber eyes wide with a terror that had forgotten what kindness looked like. He pressed himself into the hot concrete, expecting a blow that didn't come. Shadow approached, his nose extending to touch the battered German shepherd's ear. A soft, pained whine escaped the K-9's throat. 2 patrol cars screeched into the lot, lights flashing red and blue against the dusty windows of the grocery store. What's the situation, Wade? The lead deputy asked, climbing out with his hand on his weapon. She's trying to steal department property, Harkkins lied. Arrest her! That dog isn't property. It's evidence of a felony, and I have the security footage to prove it, Maya said, pointing to the old camera Martha had forgotten was even recording. Harkins's face went from red to a bruised purple. That camera hasn't worked in years. Then you won't mind if we check it at the federal field office, Maya countered. She stood tall as a black SUV with tinted windows pulled into the lot. Sheriff Raymond Blackwood stepped out, his silver hair immaculate and his eyes as cold as a shallow grave. Special Agent, Blackwood said, his voice a pleasant, practiced mask. Wade here tells me you're stirring up trouble in my town. I'm stopping a crime, Sheriff. Or is animal torture part of your official code? Maya asked. Shadow growled, sensing the darkness beneath the sheriff's polished uniform. Blackwood's smile didn't reach his eyes. Control that animal, or I'll have it put down for public safety. Like you won't touch him, Maya promised. The two stood in a deadlock of power versus principle until Blackwood finally gestured to the chain. Uncuff the dog, Wade. Let her take the trash, Blackwood commanded, though his eyes bore into Maya's with a silent, lethal warning. Maya gathered the trembling, broken Rex into her arms. He weighed almost nothing, his bones prominent beneath his matted skin. Take him far away, Agent, Blackwood whispered, leaning close enough that only Maya could hear him. That dog has seen things that could cause problems for certain people. I'm not going anywhere, Sheriff. I think I'll stick around to see what those problems are, Maya replied, her voice steady as she loaded Rex into the back of her truck. As she pulled away, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Don't trust anyone. The corruption goes deeper than you know. Rex is the only one who knows where the bodies are buried. Maya gripped the wheel, her mind racing. Rex wasn't just a victim. He was the key to a graveyard. The heavy silence of the clinic was shattered by the rhythmic crunch of gravel under tires. Maya didn't need to look at the window to know Blackwood's hounds had found them. Shadow's low, vibrating growl was a physical warning. He stood over Rex, his body a living shield against the darkness pressing at the door. They're not here for a welfare check, Sarah. They're here to bury the only witness left, Maya whispered, her hand locking onto the grip of her sidearm. Sarah's hands trembled as she stabilized Rex's IV line, her face pale under the flickering fluorescent light. If they find him, they'll finish what Harkkins started at the gas station. Maya knelt briefly by the battered German shepherd, her eyes locking onto his weary, amber gaze. I need you to be the hero Tommy Wells knew you were, Rex. Show me where he hid the truth. The dog's ears twitched at his owner's name, a spark of recognition cutting through the haze of sedation and pain. "He's trying to stand. He's choosing to fight," Sarah gasped, watching as Rex struggled against his own broken body. Shadow moved in, pressing his shoulder against Rex to provide the strength his brother lacked. A silent pact made between two warriors. Maya checked the perimeter, her tactical mind calculating the odds of a 3-mile dash to the Wells farm while being hunted by men with badges and no souls. "We move now, or we die in this closet," Maya commanded, her voice a cold, sharp blade that brooked no argument. They loaded Rex into the truck with the urgency of a frontline extraction, the shadows of Oak Grove closing in as the first patrol car swung onto the main road. Maya floored it, the engine roaring in defiance. She knew that by sunrise, either the truth would be unearthed, or they would all be part of the town's silent graveyard. The tires screamed as Maya threw the truck into a hard drift, the headlights of Blackwood's deputies cutting through the dust like predatory eyes. Rex whimpered in the back seat, his body pressing against Shadow as the sedative began to lose its battle with his adrenaline. "He's waking up, Maya. He knows we're getting close to the farm," Sarah shouted over the roar of the engine. She gripped the headrest as another patrol car tried to pit them into the tree line. "I need you to hold on, buddy. Remember Tommy. Remember the secret place." Maya yelled toward the back, her knuckles turning white on the steering wheel as she dodged a roadblock of unmarked sedans. Rex let out a weak, raspy bark, his amber eyes suddenly clearing with a fierce, agonizing focus. He nudged the window with his nose, his tail giving a single, rhythmic thump against the seat. They skidded into the Wells driveway, the truck barely coming to a halt before Maya was out, her sidearm drawn to cover the house where Lisa Wells stood on the porch with a shotgun of her own. "He's here, Lisa. Rex found his way back," Maya called out. The German shepherd tumbled out of the truck, his legs shaking but his nose already working the air with a desperate, ancient purpose. Shadow didn't leave his side. He pressed his shoulder against Rex, acting as a living crutch as the two dogs moved toward the ancient oak tree at the edge of the clearing. "He's digging. Oh God, he's actually digging," Lisa gasped, her voice breaking with 6 months of buried grief. Maya dropped to her knees, her hands clawing through the dirt, alongside the two dogs, until her fingers hit the cold, hard edge of a metal box. The lock snapped under the pressure of Maya's tactical knife. Inside lay the digital ghosts of Oak Grove, the photographs, the ledgers, and a recorder that held Tommy Wells's final terrified breath. "This is Tommy Wells. If you're hearing this, Rex stayed loyal even when everything went wrong." The voice from the recorder echoed through the woods. Rex let out a low, mournful whine, his head resting on the box as if he were finally touching his owner again. The moment of peace was shattered by the sound of multiple engines approaching from the logging road. Blackwood hadn't sent a patrol car this time. He had sent an army. "We have to move. They know we have the box, and they won't let us leave this property alive," Maya commanded. She grabbed the evidence and hauled Rex back toward the truck. Her phone buzzed with a text from the anonymous source again. "The FBI contact in Richmond is compromised. Do not go to the city. Blackwood is waiting for you there." Maya stared at the screen, her heart hammering against her ribs as she realized the circle of trust had just shrunk to the 3 people and 2 dogs standing in the mud. "We're going to the old fire station. It's the only place left to make a stand," she shouted. She knew the next few hours would either end the corruption or end their lives. The black SUV tailing them swerved aggressively as Maya slammed her foot onto the gas. The metal box of evidence rattled against the floorboards like a ticking time bomb. "Sarah, we can't go to Richmond. The FBI field office is compromised, and the anonymous source says they're waiting for us there," Maya shouted, her voice tight with the realization that the badge she wore was no longer a shield, but a target. Rex leaned his heavy, battered head against Maya's shoulder, his breathing ragged, but his eyes wide with a strange, haunting clarity, as if he knew the ghosts of his past were finally catching up. "If we can't trust the Bureau, who do we have left?" Sarah gasped, her hands shaking as she checked the IV line that was the only thing keeping the German Shepherd conscious. "We have the old fire station on the East Road. It's defensible, and it's the only place Blackwood hasn't scrubbed yet," Maya replied. She threw the steering wheel to the right, skidding onto a logging road that felt like a descent into a forgotten world. Shadow let out a sharp, authoritative bark, his amber eyes locked on the headlights closing the gap behind them. He knew the scent of the men in those cars, and it was the scent of blood and gunpowder. The truck hammered over the uneven terrain, the suspension screaming in protest as they reached the skeletal remains of the fire station, just as the first hints of a cold dawn touched the sky. "Get Rex inside now. Sarah, we can set up the treatment area in the back office where the walls are thickest," Maya commanded. She hauled the heavy evidence box out, her eyes scanning the tree line for the inevitable arrival of the sheriff's deputies. A vibration in her pocket made her heart stutter. She pulled out her phone to see a text from the same unknown number. "They found the tracker on your truck. Blackwood is 5 minutes out with 20 men. He's not coming to arrest us. He's coming to erase us," Maya whispered. She looked at Shadow, whose hackles were already raised, a living warning of the violence about to erupt. "Maya, you can't fight 20 men alone. Even with Shadow, the math doesn't work," Sarah cried, her voice echoing off the concrete walls as she desperately tried to stabilize Rex. "I'm not alone. I have the truth in this box, and I have a partner who doesn't know how to quit," Maya said, her finger finding the trigger of her sidearm as the roar of multiple engines filled the clearing. Suddenly, the front door of the station was kicked open, but it wasn't a deputy. It was Elena Vasquez, the young officer from the gas station, her face pale but her weapon drawn and steady. "I tracked them from the precinct. Blackwood gave the order to leave no witnesses, including me," Elena rasped, her badge glinting in the dim light like a relic of a dying order. "Then we make our stand here. If we fall, make sure this box reaches the state attorney, Rebecca Thornton," Maya shouted, but the words were drowned out by the first shatter of glass. Deputy Wade Harkins' voice boomed over a megaphone, dripping with a sick, distorted glee. "Special Agent Cole, you're interfering with local law. Surrender the dog and the box, or we burn the building with you in it." Rex struggled to his feet, a low, guttural growl erupting from his throat that sounded less like a dog and more like a soul seeking vengeance. "He remembers that voice, Sarah. He remembers what that man did to him and Tommy," Maya said, her eyes turning into cold flint as she realized the hunter was finally about to become the prey. The first volley of gunfire tore through the station, the bullets sparking off the old fire engines as Maya and Shadow moved into their tactical positions. "We hold this floor until the end. Do you hear me, Shadow?" Maya yelled over the chaos. The dog answered with a roar, his teeth bared as the first shadow crossed the threshold. The first heavy slug from Harkins's shotgun shattered the fire station's window, sending a spray of glass across the concrete floor like a rain of diamonds. Maya shoved Elena and Sarah toward the heavy brick wall of the back office, her tactical instincts overriding the deafening roar of the ambush. "Shadow, hold the flank! Don't let them breach the bay doors!" she screamed over the chaos. The German shepherd didn't bark. He simply lunged into the shadows, his muscled frame a blur of multi-cam-covered fury as the first deputy tried to squeeze through the side entrance. "Special Agent Cole, you're out of time. Give us the box and the dog, and maybe I'll let the girls walk." Harkins's voice boomed from the megaphone, dripping with the same sick glee he had used at the gas station. Rex struggled against the IV line, his legs shaking with a primitive, agonizing strength as he recognized the voice of the man who had beaten him for weeks. "He wants to fight, Maya. Look at his eyes. He's not a victim anymore," Sarah cried, her hands hovering over the dog as he bared his teeth in a low, guttural snarl. Maya returned fire, her shots precise and suppressed, forcing the deputies back into the tree line. She knew the math didn't work. 20 armed men against 2 women and a K9 was a death sentence, but she wasn't counting on math. Ko jang jem tung gyai jesu that bung no. "Elena, if they get through, you take Rex and the evidence through the back. I'll buy you the time you need," Maya shouted, her voice cutting through the smell of gunpowder and old grease. "I'm not leaving you, Maya. I've spent 2 years playing their game." "Oh, and I'm done running," Elena rasped, her own weapon barking as she pinned down a deputy attempting to circle their position. Suddenly, the roar of the deputies' engines was drowned out by a deeper, more rhythmic thumping that vibrated in the very foundation of the station. 2 black helicopters bearing federal markings dropped from the gray dawn sky like vengeful hawks. "FBI Tactical, drop your weapons and hit the ground now," a voice thundered from above, the sound of 100 years of corruption finally meeting its match. Harkins tried to scramble for his patrol car, his face turning a bruised purple as he realized his brothers were already dropping their guns in terror. Shadow didn't wait for a command. He burst through the shattered window, took his teeth finding Harkins's arm, the same arm that had swung the shotgun at Rex, and bringing the massive man to his knees in the mud. Maya walked out of the station, her weapon lowered, but her eyes locked on the deputy, her face a mask of cold, professional justice. "I told you at the gas station, deputy. I don't stop, ever," she said, her voice a flat line that made the surrounding agents freeze. Rebecca Thornton, the state attorney, stepped from the lead helicopter, her eyes sweeping over the carnage before landing on the metal box in Maya's hand. "Lieutenant Quinn, tell me that box contains what I think it does," Thornton said, her expression sharp and lethal. "It contains the end of Sheriff Blackwood's empire and the justice Tommy Wells died for," Maya replied, handing over the digital ghosts of Oak Grove. But as the agents cuffed Harkins, a major twist shattered the moment of relief. "Blackwood isn't here. He's already at the lodge, and he's moving the shipment up by 4 hours because he knew you were coming," Elena shouted, looking at an intercepted message on a deputy's phone. The realization hit Maya like a physical blow. The raid at the fire station was just a distraction to keep them busy while Blackwood vanished with 40 victims. "We can't storm the lodge. It's a fortress with private security, and we'll lose the victims in the crossfire," Thornton warned, her tactical teams already hesitating. "I know a way in," Tommy Wells recorded everything about the Prohibition-era tunnels under that lodge, Maya said, her mind already calculating a high-stakes infiltration. You're going into a tunnel system with a K-9 against 20 armed guards? That's suicide, Sarah cried, holding Rex as he nuzzled her hand. It's not suicide. It's a mission, Maya countered, looking at Shadow, who sat alert and ready for the final descent into the lion's den. The tunnels were cold, smelling of damp earth and a decade of secrets, but Shadow moved through the dark with the precision of a predator. Maya followed, her hand on his vest, feeling the vibration of a low growl when the dog detected 2 guards stationed near the basement trapdoor. She didn't use her gun. She used a handful of pebbles to draw their attention, then let Shadow execute a silent takedown that left the guards unconscious before they could key their radios. They climbed the ladder into the lodge's storage room, the floorboards above them groaning under the weight of a meeting that held the lives of 40 people in the balance. Through a crack in the door, Maya saw Sheriff Blackwood sitting at the head of a mahogany table, looking at State Senator Whitmore with a smile that was pure poison. The Navy SEAL is dead, the evidence is gone, and the shipment moves at dawn. Blackwood lied to his partners, his voice dripping with an arrogance that was about to be his undoing. Maya sent the signal to Thornton. Targets confirmed, Blackwood and Whitmore present, moving in. Her thumb hovering over the send button for only a second. The lodge exploded as FBI tactical teams breached the front, but Maya was already in the room, her weapon trained on Blackwood as he reached for a hidden pistol. Surprise, Sheriff. I think you have some problems to answer for, she said, her voice cutting through the screams of the corrupt men around the table. Shadow lunged, pinning Blackwood to the floor with a roar that echoed through the halls of the fallen empire. 3 months later, Maya stood in a Senate hearing room, her multicam uniform crisp and her eyes steady as she looked at the cameras. Beside her sat Shadow and Rex, the battered dog now healed, his fur gleaming and his head held high. Sheriff Blackwood believed his badge made him untouchable, but he forgot that true strength isn't found in a badge or a gun, Maya testified, her voice reaching millions across the nation. It's found in a dog like Rex who refused to break, in a farmer like Tommy Wells who died for the truth, and in the people who finally chose to stop walking away. The final verdict came down like a hammer. Life without parole for Blackwood, 30 years for Harkkins, and the total dismantling of a 61-person corruption network. Maya walked out of the courthouse, the Virginia sun warming her face as she looked at the 2 German shepherds by her side. She knew there would be other towns and other monsters, but tonight, the ghosts of Oak Grove were finally at peace. She had entered that town as a special agent, but she was leaving it as a hurricane that had cleared the path for a new world. Justice is not a gift given by the powerful. It is a fire forged by those who refuse to stay silent in the dark.